A warm welcome to our money show here on Uxbridge FM. Now, with all that's going on, I thought we'd chat to an accountant today because so many people are uncertain about their financial security. We've just heard on the news that nearly 1 million people have signed up for the Universal Credit Scheme, and there's this new term that I'd not heard before, furloughed employee, being used. There's various government schemes to help employers pay salaries or freelance workers get government support as well. So lots to talk about. Let's welcome to the show Awais Saad from TaxAssist Accountants. Hi, Awais. Welcome along to Uxbridge FM.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you for having me on your show. It's good to be back on here. I hoped it would have been under better circumstances, but thanks for welcoming me.
And how busy are you right now?
Extremely is the answer. Extremely. It's unprecedented times for us over here. But first and foremost, before I even start, I'd like to give my condolences to all of the families that have actually lost loved ones or have been affected dearly because of the coronavirus. But also a big thank you to all the NHS staff, the volunteers out there that are still helping to tackle this massive global problem. Again, in terms of how busy we are, our business model has actually changed right now because there's been a lot of legislation, a lot of new incentives that the government has put in place. Rishi Sunak in his emergency budget as well, helping businesses and self-employed individuals. And again, a lot of the relief will be good news to a lot of businesses. They will also raise question marks to a lot of people out there as to whether they qualify, whether they don't. Is this going to be enough? And we're hoping that we can help answer some of those questions for them.
Let's get straight down to it then. And first of all, that new term that we're hearing bandied about, the furloughed employee. Just explain to me what that means and how that affects someone who's under that term.
So, that's perfectly fine. So that comes as part of the coronavirus job retention scheme. Furlough, some people pronounce it farlogged. There's various different pronunciations out there, but it basically, in a nutshell, it means a leave of absence. Now, what the government has, definitions aside, what it basically means is it for employees. So you're an employer, you've got employees that are no longer able to work whatsoever because of the coronavirus. Let's say you were a barber, for example, and you had other barbers working for you. They can't cut hair at home. So in that circumstance, you would have actually looked to have made them redundant, unfortunately, because you can't afford to pay their employee bills. So what the scheme basically says is, for those employees, please don't make them redundant. We will help and support you in keeping those employees. And what we will do is we will pay 80% of that wage bill plus other related costs, such as employers' national insurance, etc., to help you keep on that employee. But there are conditions, Steve, attached to that. For example, the employee must not be working whatsoever. They must be at home. They should have been on the payroll as of February, i.e. 28th, 29th of February. I think it was a leap year this year. And they should have been on the payroll for that. There is a question mark now as a result, because the question mark came up. But hold on, directors who own small businesses, direct to shareholder businesses, where the director and the shareholder are exactly the same individuals, in that circumstance, does it include them? And this is open to interpretation. This is open to and gave rise to a lot of questions. It is our opinion, and I can only say it's our opinion, the end yes or no will lie with HMRC, lies with HMRC in a nutshell. So we do believe that directors will be included in the scheme, but dependent on their circumstance. So what that basically means is a director who can only perform statutory duties such as accounting, bookkeeping, and things that they have to do as contracted by law. Other than that, if they're not doing any other work, okay, they can look to follow themselves as well.
Right.
So that's the term follow. I'm hoping as a brief synopsis, okay? This could be subject to change. It could be that more details come out. There will be a government portal, Steve, that will come out in the very, very near future. Hopefully, they're talking about mid-April. It could be soon, it could be later. And businesses will need to follow their employees through that portal.
Okay. And do you recommend that employers get the help of an accountant to do that, or is it something that they can do themselves?
Well, a very interesting point. This is a question that we've been asked a lot recently. The decision to follow predominantly will lie with the directors or the owners of the business, or the employer, more correctly phrased. Only they can say whether someone should be completely working and hence not followed, or whether they should not be working at all and be followed. It is administered through the payroll. So if an accountant is administering the payroll for them, then yes. We are of the opinion that the portal should be completed by the employer themselves when HMRC launches the portal.
Okay. So that's the coronavirus job retention scheme. There's lots more to talk about. So next, let's have a chat about how employers can defer VAT and self-assessment payments.
So again, self-assessment payments, normally if you make payments on accounts, typically being in January and in July, what the government has said is for the July payments, anyone who falls into self-assessment will not be required to make that payment on account. That will be deferred to January 2021. Even with the VAT payments, it works with a very, very similar nature. This period that we're currently in can be deferred in terms of the payment. That's not to say that you can get away with not doing the return. You still have to do your VAT returns, and you still have to do your self-assessment according to the guidelines that are already out there.
Yeah.
So hopefully that should give people a little bit of a boost in their cash flows. But remember, one key message in that is it's not, the tax is not going to disappear. You're just literally deferring it. So if you use that cash right now, then you will still have to make up for that cash in the future when it is due.
Yeah. And the one that we were all waiting with bated breath to hear about, self-employed. There's finally a solution for the self-employed as well, the scheme.
Yeah, so you're very correct in saying it works in a very similar manner in terms of the payouts. So the scheme allows you to claim a taxable grant worth 80% of your trading profits, up to a maximum of 2,500 per month. The initial proposals have set it to be for the next 3 months, but it can be extended if necessary. In order to qualify for this, again, there's certain qualifications to apply for this scheme. Mainly, it's open for sole traders and partnerships, and you got to have done a return. Typically, what they're saying is the tax return 16, 17, 17, 18, and 18, 19. But if you have only been trading, then the minimum is the 18 and 19. And what they'll do is they'll use the law of averages over there, okay, in order to do that. And that should actually give a lot of relief to a lot of the self-employed individuals who cannot work due to this virus.
Yeah, that should be a big help. And then we've got statutory sick pay relief package for small and medium-sized businesses.
Correct. Yeah, correct. Which is, again, a sigh of relief for individuals, especially those who are going into self-isolation, who have been told to go into self-isolation, or for whatever reason are absent because they have been infected, unfortunately, due to the COVID-19. What this basically means is the refund can cover up to 2 weeks of SSP or statutory sick pay per eligible employee. who has been off work because of COVID-19. There are certain qualifying criteria. For example, the business has to have less than 250 employees, which is one of the classifications for small and medium-sized businesses anyway. And they need to have been in employment as of the 28th of February 2020. Okay. And that's important to do that. They don't need a doctor's note, but there is a certain process that they'll need to follow. Their HR departments can give further guidance. It involves NHS 111 online, etc. Okay. And yeah, the government will work with employers. That's the message that they are giving out to set up the actual repayment mechanism. That hasn't been decided as of yet, though it is work in progress.
And a big one for anybody who works in the retail, hospitality, leisure and nurseries. I mean, really unfortunate situation if you're a nursery owner and you've got stock of perishable plants, all going to go to waste unless they can find some way of distributing them via mail or some other way. So a 12-month business rates holiday for companies in that sector.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, there's something that you mentioned which was really, really important. Two factors, actually. So I'll hit the first one, which is the business rates holiday, mainly for the retail, hospitality and leisure sectors. And again, they could be the odd exception, but I doubt very much that would be the case. In that circumstances, people who are paying business rates, there's a holiday for those sectors because they are going to be, they rely on walk-in trade, they rely on people coming to their businesses, and that's all stopped. So rightfully so, there is a business rates holiday that has been introduced. And as far as my understanding is, it will be administered through the rate system that's currently in place.
Okay. And this
the
next
other thing,
one,
sorry, Steve, you did mention, and you rightfully did mention something really important, which was those businesses will have stocks that will perish. There will be cash flow issues, et cetera, et cetera. Now, one of the things that we are advising all of our clients to do is have a look at the business interruption loan. Okay, the business interruption loan is 80% government guaranteed is the term, and it's there for clients who have had an interruption. There are criteria by the bank that need to be met. There is an argument to say banks are not responding fast enough, but I know a few bank managers, and the volume of inquiries they've got is substantial. So I know some of the managers that I'm working alongside with are working some serious 22-hour days at times where it's very, very difficult for them to just literally just grant the loan because there are certain criteria that need to be met. But I strongly urge all businesses to have a look at their cash flow for the next 3 to 6 months, because even when the ban is lifted, it's unlikely that it will go back to business as usual. So you should look to have a cash flow projection as a worst case scenario and see what the deficit is and apply for the funding if you haven't got that already in savings.
Yeah. Now, this one is a grant. We like grants as opposed to loans, don't we?
Yes, we do. We do.
Small business grant funding of £10,000 for all businesses in receipt of small business rate relief or rural rate relief. That sounds a bit confusing. Explain that one.
Yeah. So again, it sounds confusing. Hopefully, I'm hoping it shouldn't be too confusing when I've gone through it with yourself. So this is a cash grant that will be provided through, again, your local council, from what I've understood. If you're in the retail hospitality sector, it could be up to £25,000 per property. So the word property means you should have been paying business rates, okay, or should be on a business rate scheme of some sort. For those businesses, they will get 25,000. Again, the detail is very minimal at this stage as to how it's going to be administered. We think it's going to be through the council tax system. I know some councils have already written out to businesses, just eligible businesses. So you as an individual, as a business, don't need to do anything. The council will reach out to you. But all other businesses that have a rateable value of up to 15,000 may also be eligible for a grant of £10,000. Okay, so you don't have to be limited to those sectors in order to get some grant funds. But again, £10,000 will come in. There will be an application process. Again, the councils have already got the information as who are eligible and who are not, and they will reach out to you directly on that. There is certain eligibility. This isn't open to the whole of the UK. It's based in England. Other places will have their own rates scheme, like Scotland will have its own. Wales might have its own, but this is based only for England. The higher of the two grants is for people in the retail, hospitality, and leisure sector. And it is only open to those businesses with a rateable value of less than 51,000. Okay, that's the key thing. So so things like shops, restaurants, cafes, cinemas, live music venues, assembly and leisure, so hotels, guests rooms, and that sort of business, self-catering accommodations, etc., etc.
It's sometimes not fair, isn't it, when you get these bands like between 15 and 51, then it's a cut-off. If your rateable value is 52, you get nothing. Yes. There's no sliding scale.
No, unfortunately, with these things, there's got to be a cutoff somewhere or another. Unfortunately, and the COVID-19 virus is really not just in the business sector, is really drawing up parameters that it has to work within. Unfortunately, like for example, another, it was in some of the papers today that the cutoff of February 28th for payroll was also will exclude some individuals who might have started a new job in early March that will not be included in the scheme. Likewise, this is testing times for every sort of sector. So again, one of the new news is in the news. Sorry, one of the headlines in the news was doctors will need to decide who may live and who may not live because of some of the equipment shortages in the NHS. So there's got to be a cutoff for something because our resources are so limited over there. But it's off the understanding that businesses above 52,000 who can afford to pay such rents, and I know this might not be fair because it's a generic sort of a statement, but the rule of thumb is anything above 52,000, they should have enough cash flow or support from their banks through business interruption loans, and that the grant probably might not make a difference that much. I know it's an argument to have both ways, whether it is or not, but that's sort of the thinking behind the decision as to 51,000.
Yeah. And we mentioned this one earlier, the Coronavirus Business Interruption Loan Scheme, offering loans of up to £5 million. That's a lot of money for small businesses through the British Business Bank.
Yeah, so again, it is a lot of money. It will be interesting to see, Steve, is how much of that money is actually lent out to those businesses, because again, from what I'm seeing, it will still fit normal business lending criteria. All it means is the government will step in to guarantee 80%. For those businesses, and there is a lot of small print associated with the loan that will be given. For majority of small businesses, again, a £5 million loan would probably be seen as excessive from some of the banks, but that's not to say it really depends on the business itself. There are going to be a lot more checks as it increases, and every different bank will have its own criteria, but the rule of thumb is it's got to have been serviceable before the coronavirus epidemic had actually came into play. So the banks have a tough job to find out how was the performance of the business before. Would it have been serviceable? So when coronavirus does finish, it will be serviceable once they're back on their feet, or is it going to be a situation where a loss-making business, which was going to go down anyway, and then they end up lending to that business who can't afford to pay, and it's going to go down under anyway. So they've got some tough decisions to make. The problem I'm foreseeing over there is because the banks are so inundated. A lot of the managers are actually, or lenders are sending the applications out to clients with a load of forms, a lot of terminology that probably clients haven't actually come across themselves. I've had some occasions where some clients of ours have actually come to us and said, listen, can you help us out with these application forms? And we've seen some of the application forms, and they are quite in depth in terms of some of the terminology. But again, it goes back to your original point, Steve, of what is the cutoff. All I will suggest to all of your listeners is, if you do realize there is a gap in your cash flow, the first thing you should be doing is doing a cash flow statement of a worst case scenario. Realistically, you should be in a position now that you should be able to see how much business you will have or not have. In certain cases, it will actually go down to zero. And then you should forecast how long you think this is going to last. Now, even though there was initial talks of 3 weeks, it's gone to 3 months, and now there's talk of 6 months. I would plan as a worst case scenario for 6 months, see what the deficit is, and then apply accordingly for that amount, as long as it's affordable and it's the right thing for you. In certain circumstances, they will also look at your own security background, so if you've got property, etc., but that normally comes in for the larger loans that are in play over there. Okay, it will be a good solution for some businesses, definitely, because again, the interest, the fees and the interest have been subsidized where they would normally be charged. So definitely a good option to have on the table to evaluate to support your businesses, especially if you're not getting grants or anything like that.
Yeah. And then got a couple more. There's a new lending facility from the Bank of England to help support liquidity among larger firms, helping them bridge coronavirus disruption to their cash flows through loans. So many schemes, aren't there?
Yeah, there is. And again, this is very similar to the above, the previous scheme that we just spoke about. But it just shows the variety of businesses we have in the UK. We are primarily a service-based economy, but a lot of that is driven through the hospitality, the retail, the healthcare sectors, etc., etc. And if they've taken a hit, then the rest of the economy will have a knock-on effect. For the larger businesses, again, all they have to do is just speak to their banks to be able to get more information, or they can go to the Bank of England. They're probably, a lot of the larger companies have already been speaking to their corporate financing facilities managers. They can buy short-term debt from the larger companies if necessary. But that's where you come into a more bespoke sort of an area where it really depends on the nature of the individual business, because that company has a huge, will be supporting a number of employees. They will be supporting a number of, they'll have a contribution. It could be that they're a FTSE listed business. It could have an impact on stocks and shares, etc., etc. So that has to be looked at in a lot more detail, which is why it's been separated from the scheme. Plus their borrowing requirements might be higher than the 5-6 million that we were discussing before.
Yeah. And finally, a rare one, probably, the HMRC time to pay scheme. They're not going to chase you for a while.
And yeah, they're not. but again, with this, we suggest that you should actually phone HMRC and agree that you still need to do that. Okay, these arrangements will be agreed case by case and are tailored to the individual circumstances and their liabilities. So 100% If you've got liability to pay, pick up the phone to HMRC. I'm hearing some really great stories from clients who have contacted them and saying they've really been supportive during this time. And if that's what it takes to ease your cash flow, to ease your personal circumstance, I strongly suggest you can do that, and you should do that.
Yeah.
Okay, definitely.
That's some great tips for companies and freelancers there. While you're there, do you have any tips for personal finance? I mean, if someone's got themselves into a bit of a sticky situation, I suppose the obvious one is the mortgage, isn't it? If you can ring up your mortgage company and have a chat with them.
Yeah, no, definitely. Again, this is something that you should do, regardless of whether you're in a position to pay it or not. Just knowing your options, just in case it gets prolonged further than it should be. Phone up your mortgage company, ask them for a holiday, and they should actually give you a holiday. Again, if you have been in arrears before and things like that, the case can get a little bit complicated. But it's definitely worth having that conversation with the mortgage company in advance. And again, on the flip side of that, if you're renting, you should have that conversation with your landlord, because then that might prompt your landlord to pick up the phone to their mortgage company and freeze the mortgage accordingly. It also expands to commercial as well. Okay, so in that circumstance, if you're renting a place for a commercial property, then again, you should do the same. You should pick up the phone, especially if you're not trading from that commercial property, which you shouldn't be unless it's essential. Pick up the phone and see if there's something that they can do to help you out and stop the mortgage payments, or if you're paying quarterly, then change it into monthly to help the cash flows over there. So that's a really important thing you should be doing, and that should, for a lot of business, the rent, the rates, and for some individuals, their mortgage is the single most biggest payment that they're paying out per month. So if they can get a little bit of breathing space, then definitely I'd strongly suggest you do that.
Fantastic. Well, lots to take in there. A big list of all the support from the government. If people want more information, they can head to the TaxAssist website. We'll just give the details for that out, which is taxassist.co.uk.
Literally just go to TaxAssist Accountants.co.uk/Uxbridge. All of our details are over there, and one of our team members will be more than happy to help and support you through this tough time right now.
Yeah. Lovely to talk to you as usual, Awais, and some very helpful comments there. And join us again on Uxbridge FM shortly.
Thank you very much, Steve, and I hope you and all of your listeners stay safe. Thank you very much.
And you. Cheers. Bye for now.
Bye for now.